Hey guys, Dr. Ferrari here. Got a lot of requests from the conference, but wanted to basically go over a couple things. The neuro is now available. The saga is over. You guys can order it. A lot of you guys have asked me what's the difference, so let's just quickly go over the three 900s right now. Obviously, the 300 and 600 have been in stock for a while, so you guys are pretty familiar with that. The 900 just sort of added strength to that, and then we moved to full spectrum kind of at the same time. So a lot sort of happened with the water solubles, and I'll catch you up right now if you're unfamiliar with our journey, or maybe you just joined us right now. Maybe you're a new owner. So the broad spectrum water soluble 900, that has been in existence for the longest amount of time, and it's very similar to our 600 and 300 water soluble. It's still from our extract. We surround it with a liposome, our saponins, a natural tree bark that gets surrounds the CBD. It then becomes a liposome. The liposome is an important distinguishing factor compared to like nanoparticle materials, because we take the liposome and we destroy it. We bombard it with our homogenizer so that it becomes smaller particles. So we don't actually apply nanotechnology to it. We just sort of fracture it to become a nanomaterial. And that's important because a liposome acts much differently in your body than a nanomaterial would. So liposomes are able to pass through different membranes and tissues, and I'll go over the specific foundation behind that statement later. But the next addition was our full spectrum water soluble. Okay, so that all that had was THC added to it, and we went over a couple studies that showed some neurological repair function that low doses of THC had shown to do. Again, low doses. This is not high dose THC that shows this, and it's mostly because CBD is present in conjunction with THC. Okay, so here's what we need to think about as a company. We're not talking about strains of marijuana anymore. We're talking about hemp profiles that have different cannabinoids. So we aren't talking about terpenes and everything's the same from the THC. Like as we think about medical marijuana or any marijuana product, we have high THC, low other cannabinoids, and then the terpenes vary, and that's what drives sativa, indica, and hybrid materials. With CBD, the reason this field is so much more exciting is that we get to drive therapeutic action without just having terpenes be the main differentiator. We can actually vary the cannabinoid profile. So with our broad spectrum, it has other minor materials in there that work in concert with the CBD. Same thing with our full spec. That small amount of THC drives CBD to act in a certain way. That's all the same idea behind the neuro. Okay, the only new piece is the CBG. So CBG is a very important compound. So let's quickly take a look at the lab report here. So this is the lab report that's available online. You'll notice the potency test here, 937 milligrams of CBD in there. And you can see there's 33 milligrams, and that's a little bit low, and I'll show you why. Our lab testing capabilities are having trouble with low CBG signals, but that's still much higher than other percentages that you'll see on the market for an entire bottle to have 32 mgs. And here you can see the real differentiator. So this is the raw material on the lab report. So what I'm starting to do now is combine the raw potency test. Now I'm attaching the full panel right below of the same material. So you can see all of the lab tests. This is all available on our website right now. But let's look at the raw material. We're at about 74% CBD and about 4.5% CBG. That's an enormous value. If you look at all the other materials that we use, we don't really scrape 1% of CBG. So the reason this is important is because CBG has a whole set of research that's going on right now that is looking slightly more promising than even CBD. But what I want to make sure that you guys understand is that CBG isn't doing all the work here. It's helping CBD do additional work. So the way I think about it is, so here's kind of like the magic behind CBG is that it looks structurally very similar to two very famous cannabinoids, and that's because it's the precursor. And the way that this is shown is a simplification because it is actually shows that as an acid that breaks down into an acid that then converts, but this is a great depiction of exactly what we sort of see with our different cannabinoids. So CBD is actually formed from CBG. Same thing with THC, and THC also degrades all the way down to CBN. So the reason this is important is we're getting properties that may chemically be similar to CBD in this way. So CBD is working in concert with CBG. It's not just CBG driving all of the work. There's already a number of articles and proven rodent model research that is 3 or 4 years old already, which is, pretty well established at this point in this research. So CBG is being looked at for Huntington's disease in this protocol. There's articles you can see all over about what exactly is being done. There's people that are already patenting strains of CBD, CBG mixtures for cancer, glaucoma, antibacterial, anti-tumor. There's a lot of exciting stuff around it. I don't want to lead you guys down that road where you guys are making claims like that. But just know that this stuff is on par with CBD's research, and I'm just going to go through the articles here that are important to me. Potential autoimmune action that's happening here. This is kind of showing how it's interacting with the CB receptors and why it sort of works in conjunction with CBD. There's IBS. So almost the same, and that's why this is important here, the CBG parent compound understanding, that this slowly does turn into CBD. So it's not too foreign of a material at this point for what you guys can understand and teach. But all I would ever say to them, to anybody that's asking, is go look into CBG. If they do that on what they'll find is these amazingly popular articles that are being published all the time. So this one, I wanted to end on this one. So this one I would look up if you can. Maybe I'll include this in the bottom link so you guys can take a look at it. This is the reason behind the neuro formulation, is this paper specifically. Neurological anti-inflammatory action. And it compares CBG to a bunch of standard anti-inflammatory compounds, and it's just, you have to go through this line by line to understand it all, but we're talking about extreme anti-inflammatory action. So that combined with this paper that I believe McCanisville, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, somebody sent me this article as well. This one talks about why water solubility is important to absorption rates and how it actually has a gender specificity to it. Women and men interact differently with, even MCT CBD, and then this is a water-soluble CBD. So you can see there's vastly different oral rates of pharmacokinetics of absorption, and this is one study. I wouldn't put all of our eggs in this basket, but it's interesting to think about water solubility and how it pertains to absorption and how it pertains to crossing the blood-brain barrier. And then perhaps now we add this other piece of information on here, this neurological anti-inflammatory cannabinoid, and we use that with what we already know about CBD and neurological inflammation, and I think that we have a formulation that's completely unique to the market. So let's just go back and summarize real quick. So broad spectrum water soluble. The big novelty here is same extract that's filled with cannabinoids. It's all working in concert with CBD, and it's in a liposome. Faster acting, can potentially get in the neural network and pass into membranes and hit receptors that other compounds in an oil-based can't. We add THC, and then we get our full spectrum. Our THC works in concert with CBD, and on small doses has been linked to potential neurological restoration. And again, that's a couple studies have shown that. We don't have that flushed out yet. The CBG neuro, this is so new that we haven't, all we can look at are a few preliminary studies, but we know anti-inflammatory superpower. It's a precursor to CBD. The other part of it that I didn't mention is that it's present in the hemp plant before it becomes mature. So that's why this is so elusive, but it's also why isolation of it is difficult to do, and it's also why the research is slow. Just figuring out how to get it in a form that's consistent and abundant is difficult from an extraction standpoint. But what we're seeing with this product, we have many stroke patients, seizure patients on this stuff, saying that it reduced their time of their seizure by 3 or 4 minutes compared to the water-soluble broad spectrum. We had somebody from the owners conference where Dr. Oliva said, hey, you should take 2 droppers of this stuff if your leg hurts to try and work on acute pain. The 2 droppers were had. The relief was found throughout the entire conference from then on out. There's in Workplace you can find Racine, Wisconsin. They gave kind of a collaborative testimonial that was super impactful for me. It's just amazing to see and hear those experiences. So my guess is this is going to be a whole nother ballpark. So just like what we say, just like when we say, hey, think about the broad spectrum differently than the full spectrum. This is a third addition. This is a third piece of extract. This is a CBG dominant minor coming in. And it does have the other minors in it. The final lab report at this point, and we're going to get better lab reports as Green gets more familiar with these other cannabinoids, but look at what it starts at, guys. It has other minors in it too, and then it also has that CBG. So it's an important thing to note that this is going to be a different piece of material compared to these other 2. So now you have sort of 3 tools. If somebody wants to work on fast-acting materials, these are our 3 fastest-acting materials. If they try one and it isn't as effective as the other, then we can point to maybe the reason behind it. Maybe the reason is THC in this specific case. Maybe it's CBG. Maybe it's the lack of those and just CBD driving it with a broad spectrum. So each one has its own utility. Just like we're varying from the oil to water soluble, now you can vary between extracts. Hope that makes sense. I'm thinking of something for next week, guys. Q&A. I'm going to ask for questions on Workplace and just pull them together all week. And at the end of the week, I'm just going to, start answering all those questions that maybe you guys give me a bunch of questions that all sort of are about the same topic. I'll combine those together. But don't be afraid if you're newer and you just have a basic question. I can go over that. I'd like this to be a recap. We have 540 stores online right now from what I saw last. That means about half of you maybe are very new to this process, and even the basic questions I don't mind handling for the next webinar.